Once upon a time, in a big village in the west, there lived two friends named Ayo and Alabi. They had known each other since their childhood days and did literally everything together. Both of them came from poor families, but they had big dreams and shared them with each other. They even planned to build their houses close to each other. Alabi suggested that when they had children, they should arrange a marriage between them to solidify their relationship forever. The parents of both men admired their friendship and they prayed that nothing would come between them. One day, Ayo received a phone call from his uncle who lived in the city, informing him of a good job opportunity. Ayo left the village, promising his friend that once he was settled, he would bring him over. While Ayo was in the city, he called his friend every day, sharing their adventures and laughing together. After 5 years in the city, Ayo had his own apartment and was living comfortably. He invited his friend to come over, and they shared a heartfelt hug, expressing how much they had missed each other. Alabi was happy for Ayo's progress and prayed that the city would favor him as well. While Ayo went to work, Alabi stayed at home. After a few weeks in the city, Ayo managed to secure a job for Alabi at the same company where he worked. Alabi was overjoyed to have the opportunity to start something for himself. They worked together, saved money, made investments and supported their respective families. After a few years, they had saved enough to start their own businesses. Ayo chose to bring raw food produce from his village to the city, while Alabi decided to travel abroad to make more money. Despite taking different paths, they remained in regular contact. Ayo had a chance encounter with a wealthy businessman who was in the same business as him. The businessman was impressed by Ayo's determination and drive, and he invited Ayo to visit him at his home. Ayo visited Alhaji Owo, as he was popularly known, after a few days. Alhaji Owo's house was grand and beautiful, and Ayo dreamed of having a similar house in the future. The interior of the house was even more stunning than the exterior. The maid showed Ayo to the sitting room where he waited for Alhaji Owo to join him. When Alhaji Owo entered the room, Ayo greeted him in the traditional Yoruba way, prostrating to show his respect. Alhaji commended Ayo for his effort and praised him for his progress in such a short period of time after starting his business. While they were conversing, Alhaji Owo's daughter, Tife, returned home from her lecture. She greeted her father and Ayo before retreating to her room. Ayo's gaze followed her until she disappeared from sight. Alhaji cleared his throat, a smile playing on his face. I noticed how you looked at her. I give you permission to pursue her, but please don't break her heart, he said. Ayo smiled and replied, Thank you, Alhaji. I didn't know you could read mind, and they shared a laugh together. Tife, tired from her day, didn't bother to acknowledge her father's visitor, assuming he was just another old man. Little did she know that he had been captivated by her. After taking a bath, changing her clothes and having her lunch, Tife was surprised to find the man still there. She heard his voice and he didn't sound like an old man. With a glass of juice in hand, she went out to the lawn. While scrolling through her phone, she heard someone say, Hello, miss. She looked up and met the handsome face of her father's visitor. Her breath caught in her throat, and she stammered, "Hello, how can I help you?" Inside, butterfly fluttered in her stomach, and her heart raced. "My name is Ayo. May I please know your name?" he asked. Smiling. "Tife," she replied. "Tife," Ayo extended his hand for a handshake. And as their hands met, he gently kissed the back of her hand, making her giggle. She offered him a seat and they began to talk about school, business, and the weather, and every other thing they remembered. Ayo felt like he was talking with his soulmate. She had a good sense of humor. She was intelligent and she was beautiful. It was getting late and Ayo begged to take his leave. But before he did, he exchanged phone numbers with Tife. They would talk during late hours of the day after their busy schedules. Ayo would even call her during the day to see how things were going with her. It was obvious that Ayo wanted Tife and she was willing to wait for him to ask her out. After a few weeks of genuine friendship, Ayo asked her to be his girlfriend and Tife agreed. Weeks flew by and Ayo was sure that Tife was the one for him. So he proposed and she accepted. It was joyful news for the family of Alaji Owo. They knew how much Tife had grown to love Ayo. Whenever Tife and anyone else had a conversation in their house, it was always Ayo this and Ayo that. Meanwhile, Alabi was struggling to meet his needs in the UK. The cost of living was high and he had spent all his savings on necessities like rent, food, electricity and mobile credit. He would often call Ayo to borrow money, promising to pay it when he had the means. Ayo saw nothing wrong with helping his longtime friend with some money, especially when he had it. Alabi continued to borrow and borrow, but at one point, when he asked Ayo for more money, Ayo explained that the money he has was already allocated for other things. Alabi was not happy about this. He felt helpless and feared he would starve if Ayo didn't send him more money. Ayo had happily shared the news of the woman he had found and was about to marry with Alabi. Although Alabi was happy for him, he couldn't deny feeling jealous. Everything seemed to be going well for Ayo, while his own life was going downhill. He really wanted to attend the wedding, but he didn't have the funds. Ayo and Tife had a glamorous wedding with wealthy men and women in attendance. They received extravagant gifts ranging from houses and cars to landed properties and beautiful antiques. When Alabi saw the videos and pictures of the wedding online, he couldn't help but feel a twisted mix of emotion within him. Look how glamorous this marriage is, and here I am begging him for money, and he refused. Ayo, you have changed. You met a woman a few months ago, and you forgot your friend, he said angrily. Ayo and Tife went to their honeymoon and had a wonderful time together. When they returned and settled into their new house, Ayo received a call from Alabi, who had been captured by the immigration for not having a valid visa and was going to be deported. Alabi needed money to book his flight ticket, and Ayo agreed to help him. Really, Ayo? You couldn't give me money when I asked, but now you have money to give to me when I want to return to the country, Alabi muttered to himself. A few weeks later, Alabi was deported and Ayo went to the airport to pick him up. He allowed Alabi to stay at his house for the time being. When Tife saw this, she was not too pleased. She wished Ayo had told her beforehand. Ayo explained the situation and asked for her forgiveness. However, Whenever Tife walked around the house, she felt unsettled by the way Alabi looked at her. She shared her concern with her husband, and he assured her that Alabi would never hurt her. But Tife couldn't shake the strange feeling of fear whenever Alabi glanced her way. To cope with her unease, she started leaving the house when Ayo went to work and would only return when her husband did. Ayo noticed his wife's behavior and decided to take action. It had been over 6 months since Alabi started living with them, and Ayo thought it was time for him to find something to do, or perhaps find him a place of his own. He was even willing to support him. Ayo approached Alabi and said, "Alabi, I want to have a conversation with you. It's been over 6 months since you returned home, and I think it's time for you to find work and maybe find a place of your own. I can assist you if you need help." Ayo said, "Okay," was the only reply Alabi gave. Alabi had been infatuated by Tife. He wanted her for himself. He was finding a loophole that was the reason he had been asking her all those sensitive questions. At that moment, he was planning on how to eliminate Ayo so he can take his wealth and wife too. He had been in the plan for a while. He wanted to choose poison, but then he didn't want to kill Tife. Mission aborted. She might share the food with her husband, he said. He wanted to use a gun, but neighbors might hear the sound. That night, when Ayo told him that it was time for him to leave the house, he decided that it was now or never. He went into the basement and found a baton. Ayo usually goes out by 6 in the morning whenever he was expecting some goods to arrive from the village. Alabi had overheard him talking to one of his drivers that was bringing in some goods. That fateful morning, Ayo just descended down the stairs. As soon as he turned the left direction that led to the front door, he was hit on the head with a baton. He fell down unconscious. Unfortunately, Tife had come down for some water and she heard the sound, only for her to look and saw her husband on the ground. She was about to scream when Alabi held her mouth. "If you scream, I will tell the police that it was your doing." He took her and tied her on a spot in the living room, while he took Ayo's body into the bush where he dug a shallow grave and buried him and left as soon as he finished. He returned home and laughed like a maniac. "All this belonged to me. Ayo flaunted his wealth on my face for so long. I am now the king of this house, and your soon husband," he said to Tife. Tife cringed as he said that. "What has he done to my husband?" she asked as tears flowed down her cheeks. Alabi took all the phones and stopped Tife from going out. Ayo's manager had been calling him to confirm some details about work, but he was unreachable. They decided to handle the problem on behalf of their CEO. Whenever Tife's family called, Alabi would give the phone to her and tell her to talk as if nothing happened, or he would do something dangerous to her. One night, Tife had just taken a bath when Alabi walked into the room, enchanted by her body. He tried to force himself on her, but she begged him that he shouldn't because she was pregnant. Alabi became furious. "Then we will go and abort this baby tomorrow," he said. "I want to have you as my wife," he continued. "Oh, please, please no. Let's not do this. I will marry you and even give you children after I give birth to him or her. I will do anything you want. Please, she said, begging. Okay, I will not touch you until after you have given birth to that bastard thing you are carrying, he said. And Tife thanked him and he left. She wondered how their lives changed since Alabi entered the house. She still doesn't know where her husband was, but she would ask him when she had gotten close to him enough. The next morning, she made breakfast and Alabi asked her what she was doing. She said that she was carrying out her wifely duties. Alabi huffed. I know the food is poisoned. Oh no, it's not, she replied. She took some of it and put it in her mouth. She chewed and swallowed. Only then did Alabi take the food with a smile because it tasted delicious as he ate. Over the next few days, Tife and Alabi talked more, and she even showed him that she preferred him over her husband. This made Alabi beam with a smile. Tife told him that she wanted some groceries and gave him a long list of things that he should buy. As soon as he left the house, she went to their basement. Ayo had bought some voice and video recorders when he noticed someone had been stealing from his business. He happened to buy more than he needed and kept the rest in their basement. She brought them out and placed the audio recorders under the couch and the video recorders behind the television and on the ceiling fan. They had previously captured everything in their CCTV, but she was sure that Alabi had destroyed the tape and removed the cameras. He returned not too long after. She made dinner and they ate. She then asked him, Alabi, I have been meaning to ask you, where is Ayo? Not that I care. My father asked about him today and I didn't know what to say. Ayo. He is dead and buried. Tell him that Ayo went for some soul discovering and his phone must be switched off while he was at it. Tife tried not to show any emotion as he told her that Ayo was dead. She simply nodded and then Alabi looked at her and asked, Do you miss him? Miss who? No, I don't. I prefer your company, she replied and laughed out loud to stop herself from crying. When they finished their dinner, Tife went to her room and cried under the covers on her bed. The thought of never seeing Ayo again filled her with so much sadness. She promised herself to avenge Ayo. Tife's pregnancy was growing more and more as the days went by. It had been 4 months since the incident. Alabi would not allow her to go out, but it looked as though he trusted her to some extent. He would invite a nurse over to check on her. Whenever Alabi went out, Tife would check on the cameras, and they seemed to be working well. One evening, Alabi went out and returned home with a scared look on his face. He didn't even buy what he intended to. This happened for some weeks and Alabi would only order things from home. Tife asked him what was wrong, but he chose to keep to himself. One morning, a knock was heard on the door. It was a rare occurrence because they had not had a visitor in a while, and Alabi did not order anything. When Alabi opened the door, he shouted, "Ghost! Ghost! He is out to get me! He is out to get me!" He ran upstairs and locked the door. Tife heard his voice and came out. She had the same reaction, only that this time Ayo said that he was alive and well. Tife reached out and touched him. "It's you, Ayo. It's really you, my husband." She hugged him for comfort and reassurance. Out of nowhere, the policemen came out and went upstairs to where Alabi was hiding. They brought him out in handcuffs. I'm innocent, he pleaded. Innocent, you say? Tife went and brought the audios and video cameras and gave them to the police officer. This is enough evidence. Please take him away, officers. Alabi looked at Tife in shock. I thought you loved me, Tife, he said as the policemen dragged him away. Apparently, someone had seen Alabi carried out his evil act. The good Samaritan opened the shallow grave and found Ayo still breathing. He quickly called an ambulance that took him to the hospital. When Alhaji heard everything, he scolded his daughter for not telling him anything. Tife begged him to forgive her, saying that she was scared that Alabi would hurt her and their child. She was looking for a solid evidence, and she was afraid that Alabi might escape and not face punishment for his crimes. When Ayo heard about her pregnancy, he was elated. I'm so sorry, my darling, for putting you in harm's way. Please forgive me, Tife. Tife hugged her husband again, relishing in the comfort he gave. The next day, Ayo went to the station and Alabi was brought out for him to see. Alabi, you have taught me a lesson I will never forget in a hurry, he said, and left. Alabi spent a really long time locked up behind bars. The morals of this story: a good friend is hard to find and should never be taken for granted. Alabi and Ayo had a wonderful friendship, but Alabi allowed jealousy, envy, and hatred to cloud his mind. We should take responsibility for our wrong decisions and actions instead of waiting for someone else to fix our mistakes. It is wrong to feel entitled to what is not yours. We should appreciate every little kind gesture shown towards us. Ayo had always helped Alabi, but the one time he refused, it planted the seed of hatred in Alabi's heart. And that was because Alabi felt entitled to Ayo's wealth. A man shall leave his mother and father, that includes friends too, and cleave unto his wife. So if you are a friend feeling left out because your friend or sister or brother had gotten married, you shouldn't, because he has gone to build his own family. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share. And please, if you have the time, leave your thoughts down below. See you in the next one. Bye.